The villagers entered the forest after being warned. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the forest, carrying whispers. The voices spoke in a language no one understood, but their message was clear.
Leave this place.
One of the men, Okonko, dropped his machete and turned to run. But before he could take a step, roots shot out from the ground, wrapping around his legs. He screamed as he was pulled into the darkness. The others ran, but the trees seemed to move, closing the paths they had taken. Chief Ozoemena was the last to run. As he stumbled back towards the village, he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at him from the shadows. They were watching. They were waiting. Deep in the heart of Umuaro village, there was a great forest called Ala Muo, the sacred forest. The people of Umuaro knew the forest was special. It was full of giant trees, rare animals, and strange glowing plants. The elders always warned the children, never cut the trees in Ala Muo, never hunt the animals. The spirits of the forest watch over it. For many years, the people listened. They only took fallen branches for firewood and fetched water from the clean rivers. But one day, everything changed. One day, a rich man from the city, Chief Ozoemena, came to Umuaro. He was a businessman who loved money more than anything else. One evening, he sat with the village elders and said, "Your forest is useless. Let me cut the trees and build houses, roads, and shops. I will make Umuaro rich." Some elders shook their heads. "No one must touch Ala Muo," said Panwanko, the oldest man in the village. "The spirits will be angry." But Chief Ozoemena laughed. "Spirits? Those are just stories for children. Trees do not talk. Animals do not curse people. I will show you that nothing will happen." The chief gave money to some greedy villagers. At night, they took sharp axes and entered the forest. The wind howled as they cut down the first tree. A loud cry echoed through the forest, but the men did not stop. The next morning, the villagers woke up to screams. The men who had cut down the trees were missing. Their families searched everywhere, but they were gone. Then something even stranger happened. The rivers dried up. The once clear streams of Umuaro turned to dust. The crops began to die, and the animals of the forest disappeared. People whispered in fear. The spirits are angry. But Chief Ozoemena did not listen. "Superstition," he shouted. "Keep cutting. We must finish what we started." That night, the winds grew stronger. Trees bent as if they were whispering to each other. A thick fog covered the village, and strange voices filled the air. And then, one by one, more villagers began to vanish. By morning, the village was in chaos. The people gathered at the town square, their faces filled with fear. 10 more villagers had disappeared overnight. Men, women, even a young boy named Chibuzo. His mother wailed, her voice echoing through the empty streets. Panwanko, the oldest man in Umuaro, spoke in a trembling voice. "This is the work of the forest spirits. We must beg for forgiveness." But Chief Ozoemena refused to listen. "Nonsense! People do not just vanish. Someone must be taking them. We will search the forest." Armed with torches and machetes, Chief Ozoemena and his men marched into Ala Muo. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became. Not a single bird sang. Not a single insect buzzed. The trees stood tall, their dark branches stretching like arms, ready to grab them. Then they saw something that froze their blood. Footprints in the mud. But these were not human footprints. They were large, twisted, and seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Some looked like the feet of wild beasts, while others had long clawed toes. The men shivered. Something was watching them. Suddenly, a strong wind blew through the forest, carrying whispers. The voices spoke in a language no one understood, but their message was clear.
Leave this place.
One of the men, Okonko, dropped his machete and turned to run. But before he could take a step, roots shot out from the ground, wrapping around his legs. He screamed as he was pulled into the darkness. The others ran, but the trees seemed to move, closing the paths they had taken. Chief Ozoemena was the last to run. As he stumbled back towards the village, he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at him from the shadows. They were watching. They were waiting. When the survivors reached Umuaro, they found the villagers gathered at the square. The river had completely disappeared, leaving behind dry, cracked earth. The crops had turned to ash, and the once green trees around the village had withered to black. Panwanko stood up and spoke. His voice was weak, but his words carried power. We have broken the sacred law. The forest is punishing us. If we do not act now, Umuaro will be no more. But what could they do? The spirits were already angry, and somewhere in the heart of the sacred forest, the whispering voices grew louder. Something was coming. That night, as the villagers huddled together in fear, the sound of drums echoed from the sacred forest. The rhythm was slow and deep, like a heartbeat. Dum, dum, dum. No one had played those drums for many years. They were the drums of the ancestors, only heard when a great disaster was near. Panwanko gasped. The spirits are calling a gathering. This has never happened before. The people of Umuaro trembled. Some wanted to flee, but where would they go? The rivers had dried, the land was cursed, and their missing loved ones had not returned. Then, in the flickering light of the village torches, a figure appeared. She was an old woman, wrapped in a faded red cloth, her hair white like the morning mist. No one had seen her before, yet she walked into the village as if she knew every path, every home, every soul. She stopped in front of Chief Ozoemena and looked deep into his eyes. You have awakened something that should have never been disturbed, she said, her voice like rustling leaves. The villagers stared in shock. Who was this woman? Where had she come from? Who are you? Chief Ozoemena demanded, though his voice shook. The old woman's eyes glowed faintly. I am Adama, the last daughter of the forest keepers. I have come to warn you. If you do not return what was taken, the spirits will take something greater, the path to redemption. The villagers murmured in confusion. Return what was taken, Chief Ozoemena scoffed. We cut trees, not go. What do you want us to return? The logs? Adama shook her head. Not just tree, but life itself. The sacred forest does not forgive easily. Panwanko, his old hand shaking, asked, what must we do to stop the curse? The old woman sighed. You must enter the heart of the forest before the next moonrise. You must beg for mercy. But beware, the spirits will test you. A cold wind blew through the village, carrying whispers once again. Something unseen was listening, and it was waiting. The next morning, before the sun fully rose, a group of villagers, led by Panwanko and the mysterious Adama, prepared to enter the sacred forest. Chief Ozoemena, though reluctant, joined them, his face pale with fear. As they stepped beyond the first line of trees, the forest grew darker, the air thick and heavy. Strange whispers floated around them, unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Adama stopped and pointed to a massive tree, its roots twisted like writhing snakes. Here lies the heart of the forest. This is where the destruction began. Now you must prove your regret. She handed each person a small calabash filled with water. Pour it on the roots and speak your truth. Panwanko went first. He knelt and poured the water. Forgive us, great spirits. We were foolish to harm your home. One by one, the villagers followed, their voices trembling. They begged for mercy. Then came Chief Ozoemena. He hesitated. His pride was heavy, but the fear of the unknown was heavier. With a deep breath, he poured the water. I was blinded by greed. I have learned my lesson. A deep rumbling shook the ground. The tree glowed faintly, its leaves rustling without wind. Suddenly, a strong breeze swept through the forest, carrying away the heavy darkness. The whispers faded, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter. The villagers turned to leave, but Adama remained still. The spirits have heard you, she said, but every action has a price. A chilling silence filled the air. Then, without warning, Chief Ozoemena gasped, clutching his chest.
No. No. No.
His eyes widened in shock. His skin turned pale as his body slowly crumbled into dust, carried away by the wind. The villagers screamed. Panwanko shut his eyes in sorrow. The forest has taken what was owed. Adama nodded. Nature always balances itself. The greedy man who took without giving has paid the price. As they returned to the village, something miraculous happened. The dry river began to flow again, bubbling with fresh water. The dead crops sprouted new leaves. Birds returned, singing their sweet songs. The village of Umuaro had been given a second chance. From that day on, no one dared harm the sacred forest again. Moral lesson of the story: nature is not ours to destroy. When we harm the earth, we harm ourselves. Greed and disrespect for the environment come with consequences. But when we respect and protect nature, it blesses us in return. And so the story of the sacred forest became a warning passed from generation to generation, a reminder that some spirits should never be angered. Wow, what a story! If you enjoyed this and want more exciting Nigerian tales, trending stories, and amazing content, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest uploads. And hey, don't keep this to yourself. Like, share, and drop a comment below. We love hearing from you. NaijaTrends TV, bringing you the best of Nigeria, one story at a time. See you in the next video. Bye for now.